beautiful intelligence and we learn to trust that intelligence, our life becomes a lot more in sync and flow, more enjoyable than when we trust in our own fears, our own limitations. Our identity is a lot heightened from trusting in wisdom, which is a segue to my upcoming book, The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder, as I really do believe wisdom is a saving grace and oxygen of our world right now. It really is.
I've learned to put most of my trust in my guide. He is so much smarter than I am, and would make sense, wouldn't it? Because when we return to our primary lives, we also return to our most of our intelligence we've left behind. And so he's in his greater self, he's in his greater mind. So he would have a lot, he'd be a lot smarter anyway, where he is now than I am. And
Mm,
so I let him make most of our decisions, and he does a lot better at it than I do. And
yeah,
and that I've learned not to doubt myself, but just simply to ask him to make our final decisions, and he does a lot better at it.
right. But it's just amazing with life's times ins and lifetimes out. The more that we trust in that wisdom, the more that we apply it, the more that it becomes ingrained in who we are.
Yeah, that's
Because over
true.
there we kind of know it, it's very clear. But when you come to this human life, it's a lot harder to apply. When you apply that, you just become it. And so part of the reason for getting so vulnerable in life after breath was a lot of people, and I myself do this, put spiritual teachers or others or experiencers on pedestals, thinking that they're not immune from the human experience or the trials and tribulations. So a lot of people embrace that light, not recognizing that light was many times birthed out of the darkness, and they was able to walk through that, and it wasn't immunized from the struggle, but that wisdom was able to be utilized within that darkness. And that's my hope, that people could find that relatability from reading Life After Breath in their own lives.
Yeah, you did keep doubting yourself, and it was only when you began to feel a little bit more confident that you began to find some success.
Mm.
That was pretty clear from your book.
Yeah,
But that was
yeah.
good too. It was it. I was rooting for you and rooting for you, and you really did start to
I
succeed. That
I'm
was
not
good to
I'm
see.
nowhere near a finished product yet. I'm still going, still have my days, but uh the power of belief is so pivotal in our lives with how we view ourselves and how we view the nature of reality. I mean, wasn't Einstein himself who said the most important question that we have to live by is the universe ambivalent, loving, or unforgiving? And if we're able to formulate a rapport with that question in a positive way, wow, our lives could really take a new form and shape.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of wisdom right there in Dr. Einstein. That's for sure.
Right. He also, I
So
think,
so where
yes,
are you going next? Wait, your next book comes out at the end of the year, you said?
that's the goal is it's going to be published by my same publisher, Waterside Productions. And it looks like it's in step to be published in December, and that's called The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder. My grandmother, who transitioned a couple months ago, when I told her the title, she said, "The Wisdom of Jacob's Bladder. That doesn't make sense." I go, "No, it's The Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder, not bladder. That's another story. It's TMI, with the other title." But yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Oh
she was
my.
very much one of my spiritual teachers. At the end of every call, she would finish the conversation with "Take care of precious you." And I'm just like, what is that? It just kind of got old to me. But after a while, I recognized that we need to remember that we are so precious and sacred. Sometimes the world could create our mind instead of our mind creating our world. I'll say that again. The world that we live in could create our mind instead of this beautiful mind that we were born with to create our world. And so that's very important to remember who we truly are,
Right.
you
So
know, at our
true.
deepest core. But yes, the Wisdom of Jacob's Ladder is set to come out in December, and I view life after breath as my karma or my story, and the Wisdom Jacob's Ladder is more of my dharma. The purpose of my experience and what is the real meaning behind it. The what is the bulk of it. So I'm a lot more excited about that book, I have to say. Life After Breath was very hard for me, being very introverted, being very to myself to get that vulnerable. It's, I'm sure you could relate to this. When you write a book, you feel very naked, kind of like when you transition, when spirits transition to the other side, they feel, naked too, and like they are transparent. So writing my books, I guess, is a way for me to sensitize myself to that part of myself when I do transition. If I could do it here, it'd be a lot easier there, right? So, uh, but yeah, that's my next chapter. That's the next thing. The
Well,
wisdom
my
Jacobs.
books are all about Jesus, so I always since they're not about me, I don't I don't feel that way about them. The my next book will come out early next year.
Mm,
Finally, it was written 4 years ago, and finally, he's finally saying it's time for it to come out. So I'm kind of
wow.
excited about it. Actually, he said we weren't ready yet, but now we are.
Yeah. Well, we're hoping libraries survive, but if not, we have all this stuff on ebooks, and we know the internet's, here to stay. So I think books are great because it gives us something to kind of leave with, others, and to kind of have that ripple effect. And it's a way of giving back, because I'm sure you were touched one at some point by someone's work. And, I think it's a great way for us to give back all the inspiration that we're given by those who came before us.
You don't
Um,
want to die with the song of your life unsung. That's
yeah,
right.
that's the opening quote of my book by Wayne Dyer. I think well, Dr. Wayne Dyer thinks it's something along those lines, but yes, you don't want to die with that song or the music still in you. You got to play that song. That's right. Don't be a one-hit wonder either too. It's not too bad, but I think people have got hits in them that they're not playing.
Well, the thing is that all of us are singing essentially the same song.
Mm,
What the thing that we still don't quite understand is that there's only one song,
mm.
and all of us are just need to learn to sing that song together.
Is that
That's what we're
Om?
here to do. We're,
That
we're here
that's
to learn
that,
to sing the same tune in the same
yeah.
voice.
That
And
sound is like Om to me, right?
yeah,
It's like
well,
one sound.
it's a song of joy. That's the song that we're here to learn to sing. And
Ah,
and you as a little child learned, you heard it sung, and you learned finally to begin to sing it with that voice of joy.
hey,
And
yeah. I
no,
am
I
born on the same date as Barbara Streisand, so maybe I can sing.
oh,
Yeah.
she has a beautiful voice, doesn't she?
Right.
Send me your next book but send it in PDF, because my husband swears that if I bring one more actual book into the house, he won't have any room left in it, and he'll have to move out. And I don't want that to happen after all those times. So
Oh,
therefore,
of course.
send it in PDF. Um, you should see. It's really quite amazing how many books we have in this house, because long before there was the possibility of PDFs, I was buying books. And so we have it looks like a library. My house does look like a library. He was very patient for a very long time. I have to give him credit for that.
It's just amazing how books could add up, where it's like you talk to one person, you get their book, or another person, before you know it, you have a whole encyclopedia. It's
Yeah.
just funny.
No, no, he really has
Um,
been very patient. I have to admit, my husband is a saint. Yeah,
wow.
he has stayed married to me as long as he has. He
Yeah.
really is really
But
wonderful.
back to your 17 in the lives that you saw, it's just kind of funny how, um, a lot of people, when they hear my experience, are like, oh, wow, no way you were 3 years old. How do you remember it? And I say, you're right. I am never my age. I'm beyond my age. I'm ageless. And so I
Yeah.
was experiencing myself as an experience as a young infant. But beyond that, we are timeless, eternal souls, I do
We
believe.
are.
And so a lot of people just have this identification with who they are, in this body, in this lifetime, but we have so many different bodies and so many different lifetimes that we're in many ways accumulation of all those lessons and stories and wisdom. And so,
But Jake, it's
uh,
even stranger than that. Every single one of those bodies was male. I've always,
wow,
almost always been a man.
interesting.
Yeah, that's why I have such sympathy for these kids that they're trying to force into male bodies. Because until I hit puberty, I would have done anything to be a man. Because
Mm.
that's who I thought I was until I hit puberty. Then everything was fine. And
Interest,
I'm very glad I
int
was not born now because I would have done anything to be allowed to transition into being a man.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that that was so dominant for you throughout. I mean, normally you hear of like balances, and when I have some, my clients will have, females or males coming through, but for you to have so many of those dominantly, you just wondering, maybe that was something for your soul that you needed to have that and now maybe
Most
learn
people, it
that.
turns out, are one gender mostly, and I'm always
Mm,
almost always male. And I just this just happened to be one lifetime that I took as a female. And so and I have a male guide, and so he he finds it creepy that I've been a female this lifetime, but he says I'll turn back into a male as soon as I die, and then it'll all seem normal to me again and to him again for us to be normal friends again.
mm.
I don't know, it's all weird,
It's
but that's yeah, interesting,
yeah.
right? It's all interesting to me
I
too.
I almost feel there's an androgynistic component where there's almost both, that we have, and
We're all both, of
yeah,
course. Of course,
alpha,
of course.
omega, so,
But I've
but
enjoyed being a female. I've never, as from the time I was, say, 16, 17 on, I never felt conflicted at all. I've been happy, very happy to be a female. Never been.
yeah, I'm glad that you're finding, beauty in the change and seeing the other side of the veil. No pun
Yeah,
intended. You're doing that literally and metaphorically, right? With the work that
of
you do
course.
of decades of research on the other side of the veil and now seeing it as a different gender, what that's like. And it's
Yeah.
all lessons and, wisdom to be gained and,
Yeah. And stop messing
understanding.
with kids. I mean, how terrible that is. I hope they get sued. I hope they totally get sued by all these kids they're messing with because the kids would be straightened out if they just leave them alone.
Well, I,
Oh,
I want, that was a goal of my book, really, for parents to look at their children hopefully a little bit differently, that they're not these blank canvases, that they that they're not congruent with their, chronological age, that there's a soul into that
oh
body,
yes.
and it sounds so elementary, right? But for to apply that as a holy and for the masses to kind of understand that as a whole different ball game, and so, life after breath, people ask, was it your 3-year-old self that was going through this? And I say it was my soul.
Yes,
It was my
of
soul that was
course.
experiencing this, you know, and my soul is not an age. But my hope is, that we could allow children who come to this earth, to teach us rather than us continuously trying to program and teach them. We can't expect us to change if we're doing things the same exact way. For us to kind of, and that's, change is needed. We have to learn to listen a little bit more. And sadly,
Oh
that's not the
yeah.
case. You look at school systems, they're more infatuated with regurgitation than imagination, and it's just all about
Perfectly
that,
said.
you know,
Yes.
and so, um, we can't expect full potential to be revitalized if we have this conveyor belt like your trajectory. you know, and so I think